Okay, basting. So what is basting? Basting is there's a number of different ways we can do this, but essentially what it is, it's a technique that means that these three layers are not going to start to shift around. So if I start to sew here, I don't want this to start to kind of like move at a different angle to the backing. So it's basically a way of holding our sandwich together temporarily in a way that means it's not going to be moving all around. So you can see that's already kind of shifted that, so it's not quite straight. So perfect example of why we want to do some basting. Now I'm going to demonstrate the technique of using stitch basting, hand stitch, but particularly for kind of like larger projects, or even if I just want to kind of do something quite quickly. Some people don't like it, other people really like it. I don't mind it. You can actually get, this is it's called 505 basting spray, and you basically, it sprays like a light glue, which then washes away once it's been finished onto the back of the fabric. You just need to make sure you're in an aerated space and that anything you don't want to get the spray onto is covered. So that's one way of doing it, and you would do that both on the front and on joining the wadding to the back as well. Some of the reasons people don't like using it is because they find, particularly if they're hand stitching, or even I suppose on the sewing machine, is some people find it can clog up the needle a little bit to make the needle a little bit sticky. I've never had that. I don't think I add that much spray, but I don't know if that's the reason I haven't had the problem. Now another technique that you can use, which again, I mean, I'm not set on a particular technique. I use all of these, just depends on what frame of mind I'm in, I guess, is using safety pins to baste the pieces together. So these are actually quilting safety pins or basting safety pins. Don't know if you can see, let me zoom in. Let's get that way. They're actually slightly bent, so it makes it a lot easier for you to put them in. So I'm just going to put one in there, and then I've got this little tool that you don't have to have it, that just allows you to just push that needle through, and so that will hold your fabric. I think it might have done that off screen. Let's do that again. Put another one in. Definitely in screen now. So I'm just going to put my needle in through there, okay? And then actually what I do is I just put my holding down tool, I don't even know what it's called. It's Paula Jean Creations, a quick clip. And then you can just leave your safety pin in until you get to that point when you're sewing around there, then you can remove it. I think one of the reasons I'm not so keen on the safety pins, particularly if I'm hand stitching, is I find that my thread gets caught on them a bit, which can be a bit frustrating. If I'm working on if I'm doing all of it on the sewing machine, I do use the pins, and I just remember to take them out just as I get close to them. So let's zoom back out again. Here we go. Okay, so the technique I'm going to use is hand stitch basting. Now this is the thread, so this is for kind of like the sewing machine thread, so I haven't included this. So you can either use just a normal sewing machine thread, or I quite like to use something that I can see quite clearly. And so this is actually an upholstery weight sewing thread. And I also use it in a colour that is really clear to see, so I know what that is. That's a basting stitch, as opposed to something that's working in the design. I very rarely use black threads in my thread work, so I know that that's exactly a basting thread. Now, what's the rule of thumb for the distance you need to have between basted bits? So we don't want to kind of like put so many stitches in this to hold it in place. We want to have our stitches, it's about kind of like a hand width apart. So it's about 6 inches. So this is quite a small panel, and you could probably get away with just putting a couple of lines of a basting stitch in there just to hold it in place. When I'm doing large quilts, basically I use that measurement across there, which is what, about 5-6 inches, and I make sure that my lines are so far apart and then so far apart that way as well. So I've got definitely got a network of pockets where there aren't basting stitches, but they're held together by these stitches, so the cloth doesn't fall apart. So about 6 inches. So I'm just going to wind some of this off. Now if you're using quite a fine thread, then you could double it up, but I would say it's probably going to might get a bit knotted up, so I would probably just go with a single thread of this. Okay, in the next video I'm going to talk a little bit more about threading up needles, as if there's anything to talk about with threading up needles, and about all the different knots that you can do, but the first one I just wanted to just do some simple basting and just start to kind of create our sampler. So I'm not actually going to tie a knot in this because this is just a temporary piece. If I was doing a really large quilt and hand basting, I would probably just put a stitch in at either end just to hold it in place, but because this is quite a small piece, I'm not going to worry about that. So what I want to do is, I've got my thread here, my needle here. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to go from right to left. If you're left-handed, you can do this the other way around, whatever. Okay, and I don't necessarily want to stitch just along the edge. I'm just going to come in about, what's that, about 1.5 inches along here, and then once I've got my 6 inches in, I'm going to do another line up here. So I'm going to go all the way through, starting off my fabric. So I'm going through my wadding here. Let me zoom in and move this up into the camera space. There we go. So I've got, I'm threading through the wadding and through the back, and I'm just going to catch it up onto there we go, we've already got a knot in there. Nice start, Perrin. Just I'm going to talk about getting knots and not getting knots as well in the next video. So I've got a tail there, so I've pulled that through, and I've got a good 2 kind of like 3-inch tail there. And then I'm just going to, I could do really long basting stitches on the front. I prefer to have the longer stitches on the back, so I've got the least amount of stitches facing me on the front of the cloth. So I'm doing this stitch, it's probably about just under 1 centimetre, and then I'm probably just going along a couple of an inch or so along there. And it doesn't have to be dead straight. Some people do it quite straight, and they kind of use it as a grid to make further decisions down the line. I don't, but you can do if you want to. So if you wanted to draw a line on here, but this is meant to be quite a quick process. Just to temporarily hold it in place. And I'm just going to finish by coming back up through the backing and wadding, but not on the face of the cloth. So I'm just coming off the edge there, and I'm going to cut it with a 2-3 inch tail So they've got those longer tails on either side, and they'll just hang around there. If I pull it a little bit, if I catch it a bit, because I've got quite long tails, it's less likely to pull through. But as soon as I've started to stitch on here at this end or at the sides, then it's less likely to move anyway, so it's okay. It's temporary. So turn this round, and I'm going to do exactly the same again, just here. So the distance between them is going to be kind of about roughly a hand span, my hand span. I don't know what size your hands are, but talking about kind of 5-6 inches there. So I'm going to do exactly the same again, just here, going through the back and then up through my face fabric. Don't forget to leave a good tail. And then I'll just go all the way across here. You can take more time over this. These videos are here. You might choose to watch the videos and then do the task. You may be doing the tasks while you're watching the videos, but feel free to pause it or just not worry about kind of like hurrying to keep up with me. Okay, now one of the things you do need to make sure, now you saw that I lifted that up, but I could tell that I was possibly making this move around, so I need to, it's because I've got paper in the background so that I've got a clean surface to film on. Normally I would do this on a tabletop, it's like a melamine kind of vinyl tabletop, so I would just push straight through and lift up my panel as infrequently as possible, but because I'm doing this on paper, it makes it slightly more awkward. Okay, and again I just want to finish by coming up through the wadding off the edge, cut my tail. Now we have it, so let me zoom out a wee bit. That's in. Okay, and so I'm quite happy with leaving it at that. If you feel that you want to put in some stitches there and there, feel free to do so. I'm feeling that this is going to be perfectly fine with the movement with this one. So this is the front of it, and we can see the back here where we've got our larger stitches. These are the ones that you're more likely to actually catch at another time, but as I said, we've left quite a nice tail on the sides, so it should be fine. If you find you're somebody that does keep catching them, then I would definitely put a little knot in there and then finish with a little knot there at the end. They're going to get cut off and pulled out at the end, so it's just it doesn't matter how neat that knot is. Okay.